These cartoons were once considered normal. Today, they'd never make it past the first pitch. Let's start with Scrub Me Mama with a Boogie Beat, a 1941 cartoon produced by Walter Lantz Studios and distributed by Universal. At first glance, it's bright, energetic, and packed with music. But behind the jazzy soundtrack and smooth animation is one of the most offensively stereotyped portrayals of Black Americans ever put on screen. The cartoon takes place in a fictional town called Lazy Town, where every resident is shown as sluggish, sleepy, and unwilling to work. They're drawn with heavily exaggerated features and behave in ways that echo deeply rooted racist stereotypes, depicting Black people as lazy, aimless, and childlike. Then, a light-skinned woman arrives by boat, bringing a new rhythm and energy with her. As soon as she starts playing the boogie beat, the entire town comes to life. People start dancing, scrubbing, and moving with purpose, all because of her presence. The message is painfully clear that this Black community is incapable of self-motivation and only finds value or function when led or inspired by someone who's framed as better or more desirable. On a technical level, the animation is lively and the music is catchy. That's part of what makes it so disturbing, because it's not just the content, but how easily it was packaged for audiences as entertainment. It's cheerful on the surface, but completely dehumanizing underneath. The cartoon was later pulled from circulation and became part of what's now known as the Censored 11, a group of racially offensive cartoons that studios agreed to keep off the air. Today, it serves as a clear example of how animation was used not just to entertain, but to spread and normalize racist ideas under the mask of music, rhythm, and humor. Let's move on to Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs, a 1943 cartoon made by Warner Bros. And directed by Bob Clampett. It was meant to be a parody of Snow White, but instead of being just a fun retelling, the short leans heavily into racist stereotypes from start to finish. The characters are drawn with exaggerated features and speak in a forced, over-the-top version of African American slang. Every scene plays on stereotypes, from how the characters talk and move to how they're animated for laughs. The main character, Coal Black, is portrayed as a highly sexualized version of Snow White. Despite the content, the cartoon's animation is incredibly polished. The music is lively, the pacing is fast, and the visuals are sharp, which makes it even more uncomfortable. This wasn't just a poorly thought out joke, it was a carefully made cartoon, crafted by skilled artists that openly pushed a racist message. The energy and technical quality don't erase what's at the core of the story. Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs was pulled from circulation years later and became one of the infamous Censored 11, a group of cartoons banned for their offensive racial content. It's not just a product of its time, it was considered extreme even by some standards back then. Today, this cartoon is often used as an example of how mainstream entertainment once treated racist imagery as comedy. It shows how even the best animation work of the era wasn't free from harmful ideas. Watching it now forces us to ask harder questions about what was accepted, what was encouraged, and what kind of damage it left behind. Let's move on to Jungle Jitters, a 1938 cartoon produced by Warner Bros. That at first glance looks like a typical slapstick jungle adventure. But it quickly becomes clear that this short is built entirely on racist caricatures and colonial stereotypes that were common in early animation. The cartoon follows a traveling salesman who ends up in an unnamed jungle village, inhabited by native characters drawn with exaggerated, dehumanizing features. One of the most disturbing parts of the short is how the native characters are portrayed as both dangerous and clueless, a common narrative used in media at the time to justify racist ideas. There's even a scene where they prepare to cook the salesman in a pot, playing into the offensive cannibal stereotype used in countless cartoons of the era. To make matters worse, the queen of the tribe, who randomly appears and looks nothing like the rest of the characters, is drawn as a grotesque parody of an older white woman, possibly to poke fun at the idea of mixed cultures or forced marriages. It's messy, confusing, and uncomfortable from every angle. Jungle Jitters was later pulled from circulation and is often discussed alongside the Censored 11. It's a strong reminder of how racism in early animation wasn't always subtle. Sometimes it was the whole point. And while it may have been played for laughs back then, today it stands as a clear example of the harm that media can cause when stereotypes are used for entertainment. Let's move on to Angel Puss, a 1944 cartoon from Warner Bros. It was directed by Chuck Jones and became one of the infamous Censored 11, a group of cartoons pulled from circulation in 1968 due to their racist content. The short centers on a young boy who's paid to drown a cat in a sack. Right away, the cartoon leans into racial caricature, from how the boy is drawn, to how he talks, to the exaggerated expressions used for laughs. After the cat escapes and pretends to be a ghost, the rest of the short follows the boy panicking and reacting in fear. It's meant to be funny, but the humor is based almost entirely on mocking how he talks or behaves, not the situation itself. There's not much of a clever twist, and the story isn't especially memorable outside of the stereotype. The animation is decent, and it follows a straightforward structure, but the main character exists only to be laughed at. It's not the loudest or most outrageous example from the Censored 11, but it still reflects how normalized these portrayals were. And that's all. Let me know which one surprised you the most.